Welcome back to Why Is That, Dad? The podcast where we tackle those head-scratching questions that pop into curious minds. Today, Annalise has questions that probably made a few of our listeners scratch their heads, and maybe their arms and legs too. What's in your mind, sweetie?
Test. Is this thing working? Okay. Dad, I was in the backyard picking some of your shiitake mushrooms. I picked a few caps and brought them in. Later that day, I started to itch my legs, and then it got worse. Then I realized that I had walked in poison ivy on the way to the mushroom logs. So poison ivy's itches. Why is that, Dad?
Sorry to hear that, Annie. Poison ivy, a classic summer spoiler. And you're right, it definitely itches. So let's dive right into the simple answer. Poison ivy makes it so incredibly itchy because of a sneaky, invisible, oily chemical in its leaves, stems, and roots called Urushiol. When this oil touches your skin, it causes an allergic reaction. And that's the key point. It's not a poison in the way a snake's venom is. The rash you get isn't the plant poisoning you. It's actually your body's own immune system overreacting to the Urushiol oil. It sees the oil as a dangerous invader and launches a full-scale attack. And that attack is what causes the redness, the blisters, and that super annoying itch. About 15 to 30% of people are naturally not allergic to Urushiol, including me, at least initially, meaning their immune system doesn't see it as a threat. But watch out, you can develop a sensitivity later in life. And that's actually the opposite of what happened to me. I used to be really allergic, and now I don't get it at all.
So if it's an allergy, does that mean the anti-itch cream stop the allergy, Dad?
That's a fantastic follow-up question. And the answer leads us right into the how of it all. When that oily Urushiol gets on your skin, it doesn't just sit there. It quickly soaks in and chemically bonds to proteins within your skin cells. Once it's bonded, it's stuck. Your immune system, which is always on patrol, spots these new, changed proteins and sounds the alarm. It sends out an army of special white blood cells, called T cells, to destroy them. The battle is what we call inflammation. That inflammation is what causes all the trouble, the redness, the swelling, and that maddening itch. This whole process is called a delayed hypersensitivity reaction, which is why the rash can take up to 2 days to show up after you first touch the plant. And it's not just poison ivy. Other North American native plants in the Anacardiaceae family, which is such a fun word to say, Anacardiaceae, such as poison oak and poison sumac, use the exact same Urushiol. Poison ivy is the most common and widespread of the three, but an even stranger relative is the cashew. The shells of raw cashew nuts also contain Urushiol. That's why you can't buy them in their shells like peanuts. They have to be roasted at high temperatures to destroy the Urushiol before they're safe to eat. Now, back to your question about anti-itch creams. They don't actually stop the allergic reaction itself, but they are great at calming the symptoms. Creams with hydrocortisone, a mild steroid, tell your immune system to calm down, reducing the inflammation. Other things, like calamine lotion, work more by drying out any blisters and providing a cool, soothing feeling that distracts your nerves from the itch.
This is all rather interesting. Who is the first person to figure out it was the oil making people itchy, Dad?
Well, people have known to stay away from poison ivy for a very, very long time, but it took centuries to figure out exactly why it was so irritating. Early European settlers in North America learned about it the hard way. Captain John Smith, the famous leader of the Jamestown colony in Virginia, wrote about it all the way back in 1609. He called it a poisoned weed, poison spelled Poysoned, and noted the blisters and itching. For hundreds of years, people incorrectly blamed everything from a poisonous vapor to tiny invisible thorns. The real breakthrough came much later in the early 1900s. The hero of our story is a Japanese chemist named Dr. Rikio Majima. In the 1920s, he was studying the sap from the Japanese lacquer tree, a close relative of poison ivy that causes the same rash. Through the years of careful work, he was the first person to successfully isolate and identify the exact chemical structure of Urushiol. His discovery unlocked the entire mystery and paved the way for a modern understanding of how to prevent and treat the rash.
What does poison ivy even look like, Dad? And how does it climb over everything?
Another good question, because knowing how to spot it is your best defense. Most people know the old rhyme, Leaves of 3, let it be. And that's a great start, but let's go down the rabbit hole in this, because this plant is a master of disguise and a champion of survival. Poison ivy can grow in 3 different ways: as a low growing plant, as a freestanding shrub, or as a thick woody vine that climbs high up trees. When it's a vine, it uses these thick, hairy looking aerial rootlets that grip the bark. If you see a thick, fuzzy vine climbing a tree in the woods, it's a very good idea to assume it's poison ivy. The leaves of 3 are the main giveaway, but their look is inconsistent, especially when that vine is way up the tree and all you see is a vine and you can't see the leaves. They can be shiny or dull, have smooth edges or jagged, tooth-like edges. The key is that they always grow in clusters of 3 leaflets. The Urushiol oil is in every single part of the plant: the leaves, the stem, and the roots, and even the little white berries it can produce. And to connect back to your earlier question about how hard it is to get rid of it, that woody vine and its spreading root system are the reason. It grows long, horizontal underground stems called rhizomes. Because of this deep root system, it's difficult to eliminate with typical herbicides. Weed killers like glyphosate are often not sufficient at killing it because the thick, waxy leaves resist the spray. By the way, glyphosate, main name is called Roundup. And the poison doesn't travel deep enough to destroy the extensive root network. It often requires much stronger, targeted applications to truly eradicate it. And here's a critical safety tip: never, ever burn poison ivy. The urushiol oil gets into the smoke, and if you breathe it in, it can cause a severe and dangerous allergic reaction in your throat and lungs.
If it's so bad for us, why does it even exist, Dad? Is it good for anything?
It might seem like it only exists to make us miserable, but from the plant's point of view, urushiol is a brilliant invention. Evolutionarily speaking, it's a powerful chemical defense that protects the plant from being eaten by many animals, which allows it to thrive. Now, here's the balance. While the oil deters humans, a lot of animals aren't allergic to it at all. Deer and goats can browse on the leaves without any problem. And over 60 species of birds, including chickadees and robins, eat the waxy white berries, especially in the winter when food is scarce. By doing this, the birds help spread the seeds. So for a lot of wildlife, poison ivy is actually an important food source.
Maybe you can answer something else for me too. Sometimes it seems contagious. It seems to spread over my body and even get on other people. Is the rash transferable? Can you catch it from another person?
That's a great question because it seems to spread, but here's a crucial difference. The rash itself is not contagious. You can't get it by touching someone's blisters or the weeping fluid. However, the urushiol oil is highly transferable. If you got the oil on your pants walking to the mushroom logs and later touched the pants, or your dog rubbed against them, the oil is still active and can be transferred to a new person or a new part of your body. The oil can stay active on clothing, tools, and pet fur for a very long time, sometimes for years. That's why it's so important to wash anything that might have touched the plant.
So is the most important thing just knowing what it looks like so I don't touch it?
Exactly. That's the number one reason why it's so important for kids and everyone to know about poison ivy. It's all about staying safe and avoiding a really uncomfortable week or two. Knowing what to look for, those leaves of 3, that hairy vine, gives you the power to navigate the woods safely. It also teaches us a broader lesson about respecting nature. It reminds us to be observant and cautious. You're learning to understand the difference between a friendly plant and one that's armed with a chemical defense. So the main takeaways are: always be on the lookout for leaves of 3. Remember that the invisible oil, urushiol, is a culprit and can stick to anything. And if you even think you might have touched it, the best thing you can do is wash the area with soap and cool water as soon as you possibly can. It's important not to use hot water because that can open up your pores, allowing the urushiol to penetrate deeper into the skin and potentially worsen the rash. Now, before we sign off, Annalise has prepared a few trivia questions to test your knowledge. Take it away, Annie.
If you know the answers, post them in the comments section. The first person to answer all 3 correctly will get their name mentioned next episode. Okay, question 1. What is the name of the oily chemical in poison ivy that causes the itchy rash? Question 2. Besides poison oak and sumac, What popular snack has the same itchy oil in its raw shell? And last question, who wrote about the poisoned weed way back in 1609?
We did not get any trivia answers to our last podcast, so this time we don't have a name for you. Okay, awesome job, Bonnie. That's all the time we have for today. A huge thank you for joining us on Why Is That, Dad? If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, please consider giving us a 5-star rating on your podcast app. It really helps other curious families find the show. And for more fun explorations of the world around us, check out our YouTube channel, Contemplative Chaos. Until next time, God bless.